Welcome back to Raised by Giants special episode, follow-up to the last Schizospiracy, the Mega Burrito Hour. But this isn't a Mega Burrito Hour. This isn't a Mega Burrito episode. Those are on the third Monday of every month. This is a special episode where we're going to be talking about Severance Season 2. The final episode of Season 2 just dropped last week. And here to talk about it with us, the host of the One-on-One podcast, To Get Weird, Juan Ayala. How's it going, my friend?
How do I sound? Do I sound like I'm supposed to sound, or not like last time?
You sound good. A-OK. Coming through loud and clear with the mic.
Cool.
Not
We're
through the
here.
computer audio.
We're here and we're queer, right? No? Okay. Whatever. We're here to talk about Severance, dude. It got pretty crazy, man. I'm ready. And there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of Easter eggs too, bro, that I was like watching theory videos on it and all the craziness that people are coming up with, like the conspiracies within the show. And it gets wild, dude. Like first season, I'm gonna be honest, they ain't have me for like the first half. But it's one of these shows that you watch it and it all starts to make sense towards the end. You go, oh, that's why that happened, or that's why that's happening. You start to connect the dots after the fact, and you don't really appreciate it because it is a slow burn, dude. It's like a really, really slow burn. You're just grinding through the entire thing. And then season 2 was like, boom, bro. It went crazy.
It did get really crazy. And one of my favorite episodes of the whole thing was the Cobel episode. I think that the Cobel episode, I really liked that one. It was kind of off. It was kind of different. It's kind of like the Breaking Bad episode with the fly. Did you watch Breaking Bad? The fly episode where it's like super freaking random and doesn't make any sense, and it's just like an episode where they're trying to kill a freaking fly the entire episode. But that's what this episode felt like. But I thought that it brought the character of Cobel and wrapped it all together really nicely. And we figure out that Cobel. Oh, and spoiler warnings for anybody that hasn't seen season 2 or hasn't even seen the first season. We covered the first season in the Schizospiracy episode number 2. Now we're going to be covering the second season here because Juan is all caught up. And I just thought that it was a really good fleshing out of the character because we didn't really get any information of exactly what was going on with her. And it turns out that she essentially created all of the technology of the Severance, like technology that they use, and they stole it from her. Well, they sort of quasi stole it. They kind of told her to like shut up, and you got to serve Kiera during this whole thing and take a back seat to this, but we'll give you a management position,
Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of like screw her over, and then she's like, oh well, you guys just screwed the wrong person on this thing, which I think that they were going to kill her. Remember whenever she went to meet with
she ran away.
Helly at the Lumen. And she was like, yeah, come on up to the thing. And I'm pretty sure that that's where they were going to kill her. But she knew that they were going to kill her. So she turned around and got in her car and left. And that's whenever she went to this orphanage type place, which I'm not one. It seems like an orphanage. Did it not look like an orphanage?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. But she wasn't severed the entire time she was there, right?
Right.
Or was she?
I don't think she was, no.
Right, because these things start to make sense after the fact, where you go, because, and they did a really good job. But the thing is, you have to pay attention when it comes to shows like this, because if you're not paying attention, it can get a little crazy, right? Especially in the last episode when they're going up through floors and they're switching between the innie and the outie, and then the episode where he's having a conversation with his innie with the camera, but then it's a special lodge, the birthing lodge, that they have to be in order to do that, which is, bro, that's Masonic. Like that concept of a Pythagorean palace, which I've talked about. It's a, now again, this is technology, right? But any technology indistinguishable from magic, right? Any sophisticated technology is indistinguishable from magic, right? That's the whole thing. And a Pythagorean palace says that if you build a structure to certain geometric restrictions, it can elevate the consciousness of a person within it or a group of people. This is why Masonic lodges are built the way that they're built. And the way that you can elevate someone's consciousness, you can also suppress someone's consciousness. So think about it in the severed way, where once they go in, they're tapping into a different part of themselves, a different personality, and then it all starts to come full circle when they reveal what the numbers were, what all the names of the files were, and I was just like, "This is too much," and then it starts to get into the ethics of it all, which the whole show was sort of about the ethics of this. Is it and the question that we asked on the last episode, can would you sever yourself? Would you go that far to get a paycheck or whatever it is? We don't know why exactly. Well, we do know why in the story in the show why he did that. He kind of wanted to separate himself from the death of his wife, right? He was depressed. He tried to be the professor or the teacher that he was, but he just kept seeing her everywhere. Like that's what they said, that he kept seeing her everywhere and he couldn't get over it. So he did it in a way to kind of shut off for however many hours. What was it, like 9 to 5? Sometimes they work like 9 to 6, like really late hours. And he was disconnected. You go out, you go home. He was drinking a lot when he was home, right? So again, depressed guy who just wanted to just get by, I guess. And so the ethics of it really got to me where I'm like, I forgot which scene it was where the 2 gay dudes, the guy that, what's that actor's name? He's really famous from Click, um, Christopher Walken.
Christopher Walken. Oh my god, dude, brain
So
fart. Yeah.
Christopher Walken and his husband, right, when they're talking about, which by the way was weird because he's like, "Yeah, you know, when we went to church," and the guy's like, "You guys went to church?" He's like, "Yeah, we went to church so that his innie would be saved," because then it starts to get into the whole concept of, do innies have souls? And if they do have souls, can they be saved? And bro, this is directly out of like 15th century homunculus talk where it's like, do homunculus have souls? Can they be saved? Did God die for that creation sin? And essentially, when you create an innie, you're creating another life form, but it's yours, right? So it's so weird where you see, you got the perspective of the innie where he's arguing his case, like, hey, help me save my wife. And then he's like, I think that once you save your wife, you're going to forget all about me, right? And then obviously we have how the series ended, which I wasn't expecting it to end like that. I thought he was gonna go through with it, but again, then what? Where do they think they're going, bro?
I know, I know. That's a really confusing part, and I thought that was really interesting too with Christopher Walken and Irving whenever they were talking about that, because that brings a completely different aspect to it. It's like a spiritual type of consciousness
Yes.
aspect in there. There was a lot of mirroring stuff that was going on as well, like with Cobel. Whenever she is in the weird area at the home or whatever, whenever she goes upstairs and she grabs that mask that her mom was
Starts
supposedly on,
sucking
like
on it.
a ventilation mask, like, well, I think it was a respirator or whatever it is that help people breathe whenever their lungs they have a really bad upper respiratory infection.
Yeah.
Ventilator, and she was breathing through it. But if you remember, at the end of season 1, whenever she gets fired from Lumen and she's on the Masonic floor and she destroys all the stuff that's in her house, she's gripping a hold of that exact same ventilator mask, dude.
Really? I didn't catch
Yeah,
that.
whenever she's laying on the Masonic checkerboard floor at the end of the first season, she's gripping onto the same type of ventilation mask that she has in her house, and then it's the exact same thing whenever she's in season 2, and at the home, whenever her mom, that lady that works there or lives there or whatever, supposedly killed her mom or whatever, and she's upstairs in her bed sucking on the ventilator.
So the theory with the whole thing is that the main Eagan guy, which is, let me find his name here. Um the main guy, James Eagan, they're kind of hinting at that I guess he was married to her mom, and then that she might be. I could be mixing all this up, but anyways, point being that Cobel might be Mark's mom. And this is the reason why she was kind of involved with the labor process of like, what was she doing there? She was pretending to be this lactation nurse, was kind of caring for the child. And the theory goes that she might be Mark's mom in this series of they were trying to and this is where it gets weird, bro, because they were trying to birth like the perfect child, almost like a moon child, but with the Kier spirit. And this comes into play when James Eagan walks in on Helly, the innie of his daughter, and he said, when she goes to kind of stab him, he goes, "Oh, there it is, the spirit of Kier or whatever, the fire." He says something along those lines, and what they're hinting at is that Helly's innie has this Kier spirit, but her outie doesn't. So James Eagan prefers the innie of his daughter and loves the innie of his daughter, but not her outie, bro. But it's all tied in with the mom of Cobel and everything. And I want to say that the way they broke it down, and I forgot how it went, that Cobel's mom might have been one of these, because James Eagan hints at kind of sort of spreading his seed around and having many. Dieter Eagan, right? It is an anagram for AI generated. So they have this other weird aspect of like the story of Kier and his brother, and then his brother dying in the, what do they call that other realm that was frozen? Was it the plains? It's not a, it's a place that they're speculating that that's a place that exists in the Innie's world, in the Innie's reality. So the entire building of bro, the entire building of Lumen is kind of like a portal. And these innies are able to access other places. And this is where the hall comes into place. And these liminal spaces that we talked about before comes into place. So I'm gonna find the outdoor retreat place of where it is.
Oh, I thought that was like a real place. I didn't realize that
It could be
that was like inside of the actual
Dieter Egan
facility.
National Forest, the Minnewaska State Park Reserve. And this is in Kerhonkson, New York. So yeah, the ORTBO, the Outdoor Retreat and Team Building Occurrence by Milchick. And by the way, dude, I mean, I think Milchick's my favorite character out
Yeah.
of all these guys. When he gives him the paper, he just like runs out, dude. It's so funny. And then when he's doing the dancing with the band, he's like breaking it down, doing the choreography and everything with the wand or whatever he was doing, bro. It's crazy.
I joked whenever I was watching it. I was like, "Is this what Milchek has been doing this entire time? Is preparing all this freaking choreography? That's why he's not getting anything done, and he's behind because he's doing all this dance choreography and preparing for the final Cold Harbor completion." Which that part is kind of confusing to me as well. There's a lot of open-ended things that we still need
Woe's
answers for.
Hollow
Woe's
was it?
Hollow, that's where it is.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So Dieter Egan National Forest and the waterfall being Woe's Hollow. I'm gonna look up to see if Dieter Egan National Forest exists in the Severance universe. Because if it doesn't, then it's this liminal space outside of reality that only existed for them in that time being. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, it kind of seemed like a simulation because it started out with, I think, Irving like out on the ice. And I was like, are they in a simulation? But then they made it seem like it was actually real. The further the episode went into it and the further things went in because they were talking about like dying out there, if they could die out there. And then Irving is essentially like lost and like after Helly, and then he attempts to kill Helly. So it seems like it was really happening. So I don't really know how that works
And
or
it's
how they even got them there.
this part is reminding me of like that movie that we watched. What the hell is it called? Caddo Lake, where it's like super confusing here. Pull up my screen here real quick. So I'm trying to figure out if Dieter Eagan National Forest is an actual place. So Kier PE, is that where we're at? Fictional town. So it is an actual place in the town. A corporate town built by Lumen Industries for its employees and name. The town is named after Kier Eagan, and several locations also named for other members of the Eagan family. So I guess it is a real place, but it did seem like simulation esque for a little while there.
Yeah.
And here's a forested wilderness area in Kier, PE, named after Kier Egan's twin brother Dieter Eagan, which again is an anagram for AI generated. And the area contains several landmarks, including Scissor Cave, where Kieran was said by Seth Milchick to have tamed the four tempers, and Woe's Hollow, where Kier claims to have met the temper Woe for the first time. It also contains a lake overlooked by a rocky promontory, which resembles a scene depicted in the Kier cycle painting. Kier invites you to drink his drink his water. I mean, drink of his water, which in alchemical terms, that's semen, bro. That's the water is semen. So here we have Kier invites you to drink his water. People were saying this resembles the Michigan lakes, right? The Grand Lakes. And also this painting reminds me of this other painting. I could have swore it was related to this one right here. Starting today. Let's see. It reminds me of have you seen this painting before?
No, but it looks very similar.
It does. Here we go. Caspar David Frederick, The Soul of Nature. Reimagine European landscape painting by portraying nature as a setting for profound spiritual and emotional encounters, working in the vanguard of German Romantic movement, which campaigned. So, The Soul of Nature. Let's look up to see if there's any esoteric meaning for this particular. And for those listening, it's a painting of a man overlooking a cliff essentially, and he's looking into the wilderness, and essentially, and this is AI by the way, so just take it for whatever it's worth. In an esoteric context, the soul of nature often refers to the belief that nature possesses a fundamental, interconnected, and spiritual essence mirroring our own souls, and that connecting with nature can lead to deeper self-awareness and spiritual growth, which that's not wrong. I mean, when you go out into nature, you're supposed to connect with, I don't want to say reality, but it kind of in a way you're connecting to reality a little bit more, right? You meditate, you do, and if you do yoga, then you stretch out there. Look at this. Nature is the portal to the soul, a gateway to the self. So again, this show is getting very kind of Jungian in a way. It was about looking within, and the N is the any, right? The any is your, I don't want to say dark self, but kind of, right? It's your ego. And when your ego sometimes doesn't want to let go, which was the whole problem that Mark was having when he's trying to convince his innie to help him save his wife. And he's like, no, 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 no. I'm in love with Helly.
Yeah.
That's who I'm in love with. And if I save your wife, that means I won't be with the person that I want to be with. So again, now the whole, after the season ends, now people are getting into the theory of perhaps James Eagan is going to have a way for Helly's any to be permanent, because that's the one that has that Kier fire, that Kier spirit, which I don't know if they're trying to manifest something, bro, like in reality, because the weird animatronic scene where Milchick is talking and kind of arguing with the animatronic, where it's kind of going off script. People are speculating that that might still have Kier's consciousness to a certain level. If it was, and by the way, that was Ben Stiller's voice, the Kier animatronic. That was Ben
Oh, that's
Stiller's
what it
voice.
was. We were looking that up on the last show.
Mm-hmm.
We saw who was Keanu Reeves. Was Keanu
The
Reeves?
building in the video that they showed him, where it's like, here at Lumen, we care about what youth, and like they were showing them the tribute to their department.
Oh yeah, that was so weird, dude. Like, why would you go head first and deep into the uprising at Lumen, dude? Like, that was so strange. That must only be for the people inside of Lumen, because there's no way that they made that for people, just normal everyday people, for a commercial that you would show to the like the Audis.
Yeah, this is the video where they're like thanking them for doing the uprising and kind of doing this video of like making them feel that they made a difference. That was Keanu Reeves' voice.
Oh wow. I was wondering
Bro,
where they were, but I binged them kind of back to back to back to back.
me
So
too. This is going to be one of those shows where you're going to have to go back and rewatch. So what I'll probably do is have to rewatch season 2 when season 3 comes out to get a fresher, like a refresher on the whole lore, because honestly, it kind of goes deep. And I was asking you, I'm like, hey, is there any books on this? Like, because it's kind of interesting. Once you start getting into it, you want to learn more about the lore, because what interests me the most about this particular show was that, mind you, I talk about the esoteric and the occult and things of this nature. And the reason that nature is the portal to the self and all this sort of stuff interests me, because also I've seen this painting in reference to Nietzsche. And I'm not sure, I don't remember exactly where I saw it in relation to Nietzsche. It might have been like, when you're staring out into the abyss starts to stare back into you, sort of thing. So I've seen this particular painting in reference to him. And what interests me the most about this show is, as I'm watching, I'm looking for this occult connotation to everything. I'm looking for this occult aspect. And this show kind of wanted to go there. It wanted to get occult, and it kind of did, at the end of season 1 with the whole choreograph, Masonic flooring, weird ritual that they were doing where Dylan sits on the bed and puts on the head of Kier and watches the tempers. Is it essentially what he was watching, right? The tempers. That was kind of a cult. And then in season 2, it kind of gets a cult when it comes to the goats. Now, mind you, a baby goat is called a kid, and the kid symbolism is throughout the whole Eagan thing. It was like their mascot for the school, and also you see the kid. I have to pull it up here. So Eagan kid school book. It was like a school book that you saw. So the baby goat stuff is right here. So go fighting kids, and this is like a baby goat, right? Go fighting kids, and this is I believe. Look at this theory, bro.
oh,
Bro, it gets crazy. But point being that the goats, right? And you know which scene I'm talking about, where they present the goat as a sacrifice.
which was
And
so weird. I didn't really understand. I mean, he was like explaining it. Mr. Drummond was explaining like why they had to do it, but it was kind of like out of left field, and it makes you believe that it's sort of like what they're trying to do with the humans as well. They're essentially trying to farm humans, but they're also trying to farm goats to find like the perfect goat to then
so
sacrifice.
here's the thing. Goats in certain druidic and other cultures, the goat is the psychopomp. The goat is the spirit that guides the person in the afterlife. Okay. And I'm trying to pull up the
Mm.
symbols on the table. Mark saved from becoming a sacrifice for Kier. I'm trying to find the table in which they put the little baby goat in, because it has some symbols on it, and it shows like the steps into which you're supposed to. But again, right, you have the black goat, this guy here. You have this whole department where they're like raising these goats, but they kind of seem like heathens. You know, like they seem like kind of it's the girl from Game of Thrones, by the way, the big tall one. They kind of seem
Yes.
like heathens, and I'm just thinking about the "We will fight the heathens, we will fight the heathens" System of a Down, you know, that whole thing.
Yeah.
So here she is right here. Severance finally reveals the dark purpose for Lumen's ghost. So, anyways, they're asking for sacrifices. Now, what I thought was gonna happen, because I didn't know what that gun did. What I thought was gonna happen, this is what I was thinking as I'm watching the show. I'm thinking that they're gonna take Gemma's soul or consciousness and transfer it into this goat, this kid. That's what I thought was gonna happen. Because we didn't know what the gun was gonna do until he's got it up to Drummond's neck and they
That
they
was my
go.
favorite part, dude. That was my favorite part of the entire season 2 when they're going down the
Bro.
elevator and Mark turns into his Audi and he stabs Drummond in the neck with the gun, dude.
So
Oh man, that was classic.
the name Drummond has a certain connotation. It's got a meaning behind it, and I'm trying to find it because it meant something along. So Drummond meaning ridge or hill, indicating connection to the land, topography of Scotland, and they broke it down really interesting in the video that I was watching that I didn't take any notes from, but that part got kind of occult in a little way. Let me see if I can find a picture of the right, because we've been wondering what the hell the goats were since the very beginning. Like, yo, is this a connection to like mind control? What exactly is going on?
But what was so weird that they didn't follow up on is in the first couple of episodes, whenever Mark is going around Lumen with Helly, and then they stumble back into the goat lodge, uh, they asked to see their belly buttons. Okay, to lift up their shirts to show their belly buttons.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, this means that there's like they're cloning people here. And
Oh.
yeah, because if you didn't have a belly button, then that would mean that you were essentially birthed outside of the womb, that you were like you're a clone. Because the umbilical cord to the belly button means that you were born of a natural birth. So I was like, okay, well, this definitely has something to do with cloning as well. And then they didn't really follow up on that. I'm guessing that in season 3, they're going to do some kind of follow up with the cloning stuff, because why would they put that in there? Oh, let me see your lift up your shirt and let me see your belly button. And Helly lifts up her shirt and Mark lifts up their shirt and they both have a belly button. And then the one guy was like, well, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Oh, it didn't make sense to him, but maybe this is what they're hinting at here, where they're actually growing sheep. Oh, this is a sheep, not a goat. But where they're growing sheep in artificial matrices. This is real. Like, this is
100% the first cloned animal was a sheep, Dolly the sheep.
yeah. So maybe they're hinting at that, and maybe they put in a goat because the goat symbolizes like the psychopomp. So let me find it here. You also have the Greek god Pan, Roman god Mercury, which are kind of goat. Baphomet is a freaking goat, the dude wearing the horns. So again, were they kind of getting satanic? People were saying that her outfit, right, in all black was kind of satanic. And then maybe this is mirroring like the again druidic kind of sort of origins, and is that the new interpretation of like corporate America, corporate greed? We're all sheep, being sacrificed to Moloch essentially. I mean, I don't, because you got to remember that this show also has a lot of that underlying theme of the overreaching of corporations and things of this nature. So it might not be 100% a cult and like, oh, look, they're sacrificing goats, whatever. It might have like, hey, you're the goat. Like, you're getting sacrificed. Like, you're the sheep. being led to the slaughter, right? Because that's also another interpretation of the whole show, which was, let me look up the so now we can read the whole wiki page without
without spoilers.
without spoilers. So let me pull it up here. So reception, viewership, critical response. Let's see what Wikipedia is saying about the symbolism behind it. Because marketing, release. Oh, hold on. What's going on here? Writing, casting, set design, filming. Yeah, I just thought it was so interesting. Ben Stiller is like one of the main people behind the show, which you wouldn't think that about him, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's a comedian. I mean, they might have this type of sense of humor in him, like we talked about it with Zoolander 1 and Zoolander 2, which is essentially like MK Ultra stuff. So he's kind of had this, I feel like he's had this in his chamber for a while and is trying to spitball this because the only, this kind of blew up through like audience, like grassroots type of thing. Like, I don't think that they were expecting it to go over this well. It seemed like it was a really niche thing, sort of like I know I've referenced From like so many times on MGM Plus, but that's what happened with From as well. Like some people watched the first season, there wasn't any promotion for it, no one really cared about it, and then it got this like big audience reaction, like what the fuck is going on in the show, and it kind of blew up from there, and that's what I feel like that happened with this show because like you were mentioning the first 5 episodes, like you're just like we just keep doing the
Chugging
same
along.
thing. Yeah, we just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. Like what is going on with this thing?
So here we have some Freemasonic symbolism. The beehive is right, and Freemasonic symbology is the whole thing. They say that it represents camaraderie, structure, working with your people, like a team sort of thing, right? The beehive, and this particular guy here at Russell Net, he's talking about, I think the writers and visual artists behind Severance had quite a bit of fun playing with Masonic imagery. I don't mean that in a satanic panic sense. I mean that they're doing it intentionally as a hint to the audience about what they're trying to say with the show. For the purpose of this article, I'm lumping Freemasonry, the Illuminati, and Luciferianism into one big pile. Normally, you can go way off track by looking too deeply into minute details of TV shows. Severance is not like that. Severance seems to invite the viewer to freeze frame everything and examine it closely. That was one thing I didn't enjoy about the show, because a lot of the things that I didn't catch was the Helly's, I guess, employee ID was the same as Cold Harbor. So they're trying to say that she is kind of Gemma. She kind of says that too when she's like, I'm her. What the hell did she mean by I'm her? I
Yes.
took that as that she was Gemma, or maybe Helly's Innie is one of the consciousnesses of the files that they created and they put it into Helly. And that's
Yes.
why he falls in love with her.
That's right. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, yeah, that because that didn't make any sense because they want you to relate that part where she says I'm her as I'm the any version of her Audi version, but I don't think that that's exactly what's going on. I think that because the whole thing doesn't really make too much sense as to because it seems like Mark is the only they basically explain that Mark is the only one that can do this to her. He's the only one that can get rid of all of her like the things to create a separate consciousness for her to like go into, right?
Yeah.
But Pete Petey in the beginning of the series was the head of the severed floor
Yeah.
before. Mark wasn't always the head of the severed floor. So what was he working on when he was the head of the severed floor down there? Was he, because that doesn't make any sense. How could Mark have been the only one that can do this for however many years that they've been there when he hasn't been the head
Yeah.
person that's employed down there, when it was Petey up until the point that we started in, and he had already been there for like how many years? Like 2 years up until that point.
Yeah, and somebody did the math, by the way, and this show would take place in 2035. And yeah, that part didn't make sense to me because the magnum opus was Cold Harbor, which they hinted at Cold Harbor in the episode where they're looking back at Gemma and Mark's relationship, and the baby crib on the box. If you read the box, it had the letters that would spell out Cold Harbor. So again, if you're not watching the show, how this guy's saying freezing it frame by frame, you're not going to understand it. And that's one of the mistakes I made when I was watching the show, because I was watching it while I was working. So I'm paying attention, but I'm not paying like attention. You get what I'm saying? Like,
And bro, who the fuck is the young Asian girl?
I thought that was a young Gemma. Maybe a clone version of Gemma, because they kind of sort of kept her with the same, not the same job, but it was weird that there was a child there. That's why Dylan was like, "Hey, are you sure? Like, are you here? Do you want to be here? You're not being kept here by, against your will." She was an intern, but I think, right, internal, maybe it was another consciousness of Gemma, because she comes into play after they're almost already done. So maybe they bred, no pun intended, one of those consciousnesses and they put it into the little girl, because we still don't know who the hell she is.
And then they got rid of her right whenever Cold Harbor was getting ready to be complete.
Yes, because they were all going to die once Cold Harbor. So again, the magnum opus was finish this thing. And what they wanted to do was, what they were trying to achieve, they were trying to see how far this shield could go, right? This shield that separates all the innies and all these different, because when Gemma was being tested on in all these different rooms, they would always ask her like, "Hey, who are you?" And she wouldn't remember what was happening in the previous rooms. And mind you, every single room was a different file that they were working on. So what they wanted to achieve at the very end with Cold Harbor was, if they could make somebody who is deassembling their dead child's crib, if they could make that person forget that trauma and it wasn't able to bleed through, they were successful. And that's why James Eagan went into that weird room that he went into, and they were watching it all unfold, because then their magnum opus, or their last experiment, whatever this is, because mind you, it seems like there's a bigger plot, and the board almost seems like they're interdimensional. They are like the Watchers, or how this guy is talking about the Illuminati, because they're always present. You can only tap into them through that one girl where she's like, "Is the board here?" Yes, they are. It's like, you want to talk to them, and then you have to kind of sort of do it through like a medium, through like a
Yeah.
priest, a
Yeah.
priestess. She's
Yeah.
talking them through this person. So they're doing all this for the quote unquote board. We still don't know if the board is even actual people, or if the board might be some sort of AI, bro. Like, what if the board is a sort of AI algorithm with the whole Dieter Eagan, which is AI generated? We don't know where that plays a role. And maybe there's a bigger scheme behind everything, and that might be where they're taking the whole show, because we got a lot of answers, but we still have a lot of questions, right? Like, who the hell was the little girl? What the hell is the point of it all? Like, what's the point of the whole thing? Because once Cold Harbor was done, they were all gonna die. What does that even mean? Were they gonna
This is what I thought was going to happen. As I was watching it, I was like, okay, Mark is going to decide to go down there. He's going to rescue her. But whenever they completed Cold Harbor, because they talked about it several times, that whenever Cold Harbor was going to be complete, she was going to die. Like, Gemma was going to cease to exist. But that was a metaphor. That wasn't real. It was that she wasn't going to physically die. She was going to be reborn as a separate consciousness. Okay? and that was going to be the final consciousness. So what I thought was going to happen was Mark was going to get down there, rescue Gemma, but Gemma was permanently going to be this robot. She was going to be perma burnt. She wasn't going to be able to have any of the emotions. She wasn't going to remember. She was going to essentially be a brand new human adult and not know anything. And I thought she was going to be like that forever. So whenever he took her back up the elevator, I thought that she was going to stay the way that she was whenever she was in there disassembling the baby crib.
No, every
I thought
room
she was going to
had.
be like, but that defeats the purpose of this big, huge Cold Harbor thing, because I thought that that was going to erase all of the other segments of the consciousness that had been created. Okay.
Maybe.
And I thought that she was just going to be that individual from the very beginning. I mean, like from there on out.
Yeah.
So whenever she walks in to disassemble the crib, I was like, Mark's going to walk in there. He's going to recognize her. She has absolutely no idea who he is. He convinces her to come with him. Should they go up the elevator, and then whenever they go back into their innie, I thought she was going to stay the exact same, and that he was going to have a really big problem. I thought she was just going to be perma-burnt, dude. I thought she was going to be perma-fried. And I was like, well, that would have been really interesting to do, because they essentially want to, from what I gathered and watching it through one time, is that they want to create this like robot type of person, right? They want to clear out all of these. They want to clear out fear. They want to clear out envy. They want to get rid of all the normal emotions of a human being. Exactly. All the woes. And they want to create a person that has no emotions, so they can essentially do this task all the time, 24/7. And then they're not considered a human being anymore. So they can work here forever and never have to leave. Okay. And that's what I kind of gathered was the goal. And I thought whenever Cold Harbor was going to be complete, that was going to erase all the other separations of consciousness whenever she goes into the room, and she was going to be permanently like that individual. And that made sense to me. I was like, okay, well, that makes more sense than, because it doesn't really make a lot of sense as to why that this version of her was so important. Like, why would that have to be the end? Why couldn't they separate and do another consciousness after this consciousness?
Well, I think so. There's a few things going on, and you have to also remember, Ryder, that at the end of the day, they can sever these people whenever they want. They already proved that they can do this whenever, wherever they are. They don't have to be this overtime contingency, right, that they're able to tap into, where they're able to shift these people's consciousness wherever they are, no matter the time, no matter the place, which kind of, hey, they don't have to be at Lumen for them to be a severed person. They could be out in the real world, which, that's the whole thing that happened when he was out in the book reading party. But also another part of me is telling me that the innies might have a special ability, and that's why it needs to be them in order to birth these other innies into existence. Because why not just, hey, if you already have the technology and you already know how to do this and you can already sever people, why not just do it on your own? Why do you need people to do it for you? And that's the part that's weird, because they have to be these worker bees for the man, for the corporation, for Lumen, that has to conduct this task. Now they say, oh, it's because he can feel the numbers. And the numbers are what? The numbers are different aspects of, in this particular instance, Gemma's mind, right? That was the way that her mind works, and that they were able to deconstruct and reconstruct other consciousnesses of Gemma, right? But is that true for everybody else? Because how you were saying, Pete, what the hell was he doing? Was he also building ulterior innies or other innies for Gemma? Like, who was he working on?
Yeah,
the whole time.
what was he doing there? That's like one of the seems like a continuity error, but maybe they'll. I think the whole thing with Pete is like just done. They scrapped the whole thing with Pete. I don't think they're going to go back to that. But that was my question because it kind of seemed like it all centered around Mark and his relationship with his wife, and he's the only one that can do the task. So it's like, what was Pete doing there? Was he working on his wife, like, or his a relative of his? But then that means, well, how are they working on two people at the same time? It doesn't. But I was really close in my theory. Uh, but that I said last time before I had watched season two was that I thought that they were keeping the severed people severed. And I was kind of close. It was just for one individual, but it wasn't for everyone. But hey, I was semi had it.
Yeah, so I'm reading into Pete to see what his whole backstory was, and I'm not seeing why he was there. Like because we saw his wife and his daughter, so he wasn't there because of like he was missing somebody, like how Mark was, where he was missing his wife because she had passed, and then well, we thought she had passed. So to tie this into like the bigger picture of the grand conspiracy of people like, oh, did old Jeffrey really die, or were we presented this concept that he died and maybe he's on some remote island somewhere, his any self, or maybe they transferred the consciousness to, USB drive, whatever, and they entered it, in some other bot, like another vessel, because that's what this is kind of sort of getting into. If you're able to compartmentalize someone's mind, what are you then able to do with that if you're able to break it down and store it into a computer essentially, or a hard drive or something? What else can you do with that? You get what I'm saying? Like there's a bigger conspiracy at the end of all this. And I want to look into this particular article here where Severance season 2 finale's last shot is a warning about season 3. Ben Stiller says so. They said this shot here where it ends is a warning about season 3. Now, Ben Stiller explains the significance of the freeze frame and the color red at the end of the Severance season 2 finale. The episode concludes with a freeze frame of Mark and Helly running down a lumen hallway highlighted in red. This occurs after Mark's and he chooses to go with Helly instead of his Audi's wife, Gemma. Apple TV Plus has already renewed Severance season 3, ensuring that the fallout of this decision will be explored and that the stories of Mark, Helly, and Gemma will continue. So maybe in the next season, people were contemplating that that Gemma was going to be picked up by Mark's sister and her husband, and that they were going to then try and save Mark from inside of Lumen, but then maybe perhaps Helly is going to have a permanent because that's the one with the Kier spirit, right? That's the one that has that fire that her dad was talking about. In an interview with IndieWire, Stiller explained that the freeze frame is meant to be reminiscent of 1970s movies, which sometimes use freeze frames to show that the movie is over, but that the story will continue. As for the color red, Stiller discussed how the color has been used minimally in the series so far, and that it was introduced to visually mark a distinct turning point towards Severance season 3's tone and story. And again, I didn't really realize the red all that much, to be honest, throughout the whole thing. He also revealed how the scene was shot to make it feel like it was a scene out of an older movie. And he says, for me, that image was just in my head from the beginning. When we said, okay, we're going to go this far, and this is where we're going to take it. You don't see freeze frames at the end of movies that often these days, but it used to be done a lot more. It's just kind of this moment in time where you're like, oh, wow, this is the end of the movie, but it's going to keep going. We just don't know where it's going to go. You marinate in this moment. It reminded me of movies that I watched growing up. This slow zoom in on the freeze frame reminded me of 70s movies a little bit. We
Yeah,
actually
like all the Rocky movies did
really, I never seen rock movies. We shoot this show digitally, but we transferred that last shot to film and retransferred it because we wanted to have the grain to zoom in on. Huh. So it felt like a movie that would have been shot on film where they would have had an optical printer that would have zoomed in on it. And it goes to red, which we haven't really gone to before. I think it's kind of signaling, hey, we're going into a different tone here now. We are going into a different reality for these people. Boom, bro, right there. Right there. A different reality for these people. So they're going to be, again, what happens if the Lumen building gets destroyed? Do the Ennies go with it? Do those consciousness go with it? Because how far could they get away? And we know that, and the whole thing that I'm not liking about this ending of this show was that they could easily be turned off whenever they want to. Again, we have the overtime contingency. They have full control over these people at any given point. So they could easily shut this whole thing down if they truly wanted to. Now, who's left to do that? I mean, James Eagan or Milchick is still out there too. You know, Milchick is kind of the guy running things now with his what is his verbose vocabulary or whatever it was. Oh man.
Oh man, stop using big words, Mr. Milchek.
Yeah, Mr. Milkshake. Yeah, he's probably my favorite character, especially after the band part of it all, which that was super weird too. The scene where they kind of run in, they're celebrating, and then Milchick does his thing where he's like dancing and so he's breaking it down, bro. I'm like, but they were also, I don't know if you remember when Cobel sang that song for them in front of the office. She did like an acapella of like
Yes.
a song.
Yes.
So the band played that song.
Oh wow.
I don't know if you caught on to that. Now again, I
No,
don't
I didn't.
know. Let me see here which song it was to see if it's relevant. Played Severance. Again, there's so many strings to pull at. So all the songs in Severance season 2, from Who to Ella Fitzgerald. Let's see here. That was what, episode 10, right? Here.
Yeah.
So they have Sirius by the Alan Parsons Project. I'll Be Seeing You by Billie Holiday, and The Windmills of Your Mind by Mel Torme. What is this? Huh. Oh, and they were also drawing from what's that one? Twilight Zone. They were also drawing from a Twilight Zone episode too. I saw. And one of these songs was supposedly about like mind control. The Windmills of Your Mind. Is this one it? I don't think so. Let's see here. What's the song? I forgot the name of the song that they played.
Yeah, that was just a wild scene. And the whole time I was like, man, Mark, you need to be getting out of here like quick, dude. Like you can't be you just completed the file, bro. You gotta be trying to figure out how to get out of here quick, dude.
Okay, so they played
around.
a version of the Kier anthem, the same song that Cobel sings in MDR season 1 when the group is back from OND. The song and a song called Ballad of Amber Rose and Gunnell. I watched the episode once. Yeah, so I think this Ballad of Amber Rose and Gunnell is a Twilight Zone show. Oh, Amber Rose Eagan and Gunnell Eagan. What? Somebody said low key, the Ballad of Ambrose and Gunnell slaps.
Shit slaps.
Yeah, bro. Again, there's so much here. I'm gonna have to watch it again, bro. There's just no way. Like There's no way we could like. There's so many things I miss looking back at these like theory uh uh video season 3 Severance theories. So here. Oh, look at that. He says Ben Stiller admits he enjoys wild Severance fan theories. That was 24 hours ago. Here you go. So theories after watching season 2 finale. Wanted to share some theories about where the season next season could go. Have a different ideas, theories. If it picks up where season 2 left off and goes in a new direction no one expects. Also love season 2 finale. It was funny and sad and tragic all at the same time. The best parts of the band. Helly hitting Milchick with I think a trombone. The season where the scene where the band was classic Milchick and what you would expect from what was to be Lumen's finest day. It also added to the suspense of rescuing Gemma. It's a lot, I know, but I would love to hear what you guys think and where you think the show could go from here. All of this is why I think the show should go on for as long as it can tell a great story, whether 3, 4, and 5 seasons. All right, so I know some people think just 3 is enough, but it should go on as long as it keeps us engaged. I don't know about that. We shouldn't be limited to just 3 seasons. There's more left to tell us about, and there is a lot we still don't know about Lumen, Irving, and Jaime or Kier Eagan. Jaime and Lumen try to make. So this is one of the theories. Jaime and Lumen try to make Helly R more like Kier, or perhaps try to make Helena more like Helly R. I say this because when James talks to Helly, he says she has the fire of Kier and that he saw this in Helena when she was a kid. James seems impressed with how Helly tricked him into thinking she was Helena. So that's what I was saying about him preferring his daughters. He loves his daughter's Innie and not his actual daughter. And now I don't know if that's going to get like PDF file-ish. Like, I don't know if that's like part of this whole thing, how there's some crazy theories. Maybe perhaps not, because that's kind of wild and that's kind of out there. But
But
I
what's
mean,
weird is that Helly R as the innie is in love with Mark, and then it also sounds like, and feels like that Helena.
is she really though, bro? Like, is Helena truly in love with Mark? Because she did have relations with him on her own behalf. And mind
Yeah,
you,
that's what
that
I'm
was,
saying. Both of them seem like they're both in love with Mark. Whenever she wasn't severed, whenever like in the first like 2 episodes or 3 episodes, when she wasn't severed, whenever she was working at Lumen, they tried to pull a fast one on everyone, and Irving exposed her. She slept with Mark as her outie, as Helena, meaning that, well, like, why would she do that if she didn't have any feelings for him? So it seems like both of them. And then whenever she met him outside, like as their outies at that restaurant, whenever Mark went to sit down at the
yeah.
restaurant, and then she's sitting at the other table across from him,
Oh, dude,
like, dude,
there's a bunch of people in this family. The Eagan family. There's a bunch of people in it. I'm looking up Severance family tree. You have Kier Eagan, Dieter Eagan. You have Emojine Eagan, Ambrose Eagan, Myrtle Eagan, Baird Eagan, Gerard Eagan, Philip Pip Eagan, Lenora Eagan. There's a ton of them, bro. James Eagan, Helen Eagan. There's a ton. Like, this is wild. I'm trying to see if I can find a picture.
well, we don't even know how many other Lumen type buildings that there are in the world. I mean, it made it sound like that they were wanting that there's a lot of them, that we're just focusing on one building out of maybe hundreds.
Yeah, bro, this is getting into Caddo Lake territory with this family tree. All right, so here
One
we
person's
have.
sister is their brother and their brother's cousin, and then their stepsister has a wife with a kid that is actually their father.
So check this out. All right, we have all these Eagans. Is this the board? Is this the consciousness of these Eagans that they're tapping into when they talk to the board, right? With Natalie, because her last name is redacted, right? So what she's the one that kind of sort of transmits the the board to them, right? She's like this priestess that's able to tap into the board, and she's like, they've logged off now or whatever it is. Like, so it's super weird.
They have ended the call. The
Yeah, they have
board has
ended the
ended the
call, right?
call.
So another thing, perhaps Lumen activates the OTC for Helly on the outside world, so James can groom her for CEO or make her more Kier-like. If not one above, we at least need to learn more about James Egan's conversation with Helly and what it meant and why it's important in the next season. Yeah, we're probably going to get more background on this. We see the innies in the first episode or two refusing to leave the severed floor as the macro data's uprising spreads to other departments. Helena will get pregnant as a result of the Ortbo, which yet I wasn't she sick in one of the episodes? Didn't she feel weird in one of the episodes, or was that after she had learned that they had relations?
That was after she found out that her Audi had sexual relations with Mark, and then she didn't get to experience it. So then they had
They
sex.
pitched the tent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because I thought she was like throwing up on one season. Maybe not. I thought that was like morning sickness or something, right? Again, hinting at that she might be pregnant. Which, what happens then? Like, whose kid is that really? Right? If it was created by, and this is where you get into different, almost like a liminal baby, because it was created with an innie and an outie. So what does that make the kid? You get what I'm saying? Because obviously they're still people, but their consciousness wasn't all there. So is that like a severed baby? You get what I'm saying? Like, will the baby have two consciousnesses, or like, what is the plural for consciousness? Plural form of consciousness. Am I saying it correctly? Yeah, consciousnesses. Yeah, that's weird. Gemma will try to rescue Mark from the severed floor. That's what I talked about earlier. We will find out that while Cold Harbor failed when Gemma's any trusted Mark, it was only a setback and gives them an opportunity to progress towards whatever their ultimate goal is. We will see what revolving is. Helena becomes CEO, maybe in a twist. Helly, after seeing James talk with her, not as just as a normal any. We finally see what the board is. My guess it's recent past CEOs consciousness. There you go, dude. I think so too. We see Irving come back to join Devin, Mark, and Gemma as they try to expose Lumen and get Mark back.
I don't know. That kind of seems weird because I think that they just gave Irving a really good exit. I think they just tossed his character out.
Wait, have I been calling him? Oh,
Irving's the guy that's in love with Christopher Walken's. Yeah.
Yeah, but Dylan is okay. I was getting Devin and Dylan mixed up. Okay. So
Dylan is the one that his wife keeps coming back to, the Lumen, and his wife is catching feelings for his innie and not liking his Audi. That was so weird, dude.
That was weird.
So weird. And then he got so salty with her whenever she told him that she had made out with his innie. Like, you cheating whore.
We learn more about Irving, perhaps that he was on the testing floor himself. At one point, we learn who Irving was talking to on the phone, trying to bring down Lumen, perhaps someone on the inside. I don't remember that part. We learn more about Lumen's ultimate goal or end game, perhaps to live forever, and the chips are a way to achieve that. I think so too. I think this is all about transhumanism and achieving this quantum immortality, if you will. Cobel might turn on Mark and Devin. She only joined them because she's angry at Lumen for firing her and not getting credit for designing. Did she kiss her brother, dude, by the way?
She did make out with that guy, but I'm not sure if that was that her brother?
Was that her brother or was that her ex-husband?
I don't know. I kind of thought it was her brother in the beginning of it, and then whenever they made out, I don't know. It might have been.
Hold on, I'll tell you right now.
We're getting some Game of Thrones-esque stuff going on here.
Let's see. I don't know if it was. I know he was a. I know he was a Cobel for sure, because she says his name. But I
I didn't
thought it
know if they
was.
were like good friends or if they both were at the weird orphanage place together or if they were family or.
Who did Cobel kiss? So Miss Cobel shares a kiss with Harmony's father, Hampton, after they both huff ether together. Harmony's father. Who the hell's Harmony? Was that girl, the one at the bottom floor?
I don't know. I don't know who Harmony is.
It might be the lady that she was talking about that killed her mom. So Harmony Cobel. Bro, I'm so confused right now. Miss Cobel shares a kiss with Harmony's brother Hampton. Who the hell is Hampton Cobel? Right? Because she says his name. Hampton is a childhood friend of Harmony Cobel. Okay, so it was a friend. It wasn't her brother.
They kind of made it seem like that it was her brother, though, a little bit.
All right. So as a child, Hampton worked at the ether factory owned and operated by Lumen Industries alongside his friend, Harmony Cobel. There, they both became addicted to ether when they grew up. Harmony left and began working for Lumen's severed floor. When she returned to Salt's Neck, Hampton initially refused to help her, but ultimately decided to drive her to her aunt's house at her request. He waited outside for her for several hours before going inside to get her. He brought ether and they got high together, and then he helped her out of the storm shelter on the property where she found what she was looking for. She was confronting her aunt when Hampton called her to tell her someone was coming. He let her take the truck to help her escape. So they were close friends. I thought it was her brother, but I was like, what is happening here? So Cobel might turn on them. We see a flashback and learn how PD and or Irving both knew about the testing floor. Like a couple others have said, we see Mark continuing to have to make choices that pin his Audi against his innie. Helena continues to try to get with Mark, whether Audi or innie. Helena starts to betray her father, James Eagan, as he becomes more like Helly. She already seems to be having somewhat of an arc when she's with Mark at the Ortbo and apologizes for distracting him finding his wife. She doesn't make a distinction between innie and outie. As the stakes rise, we learn about growing debates about whether to outlaw or to keep Severance, whether this is in Kier, the state, or Congress, along with 19. Maybe we see Helena in a congressional hearing testifying against Mark and Gemma about what they've experienced. We see backstory on James Eagan or even Kier himself, and see Helena as a kid being groomed to be CEO of Lumen, especially after the animatronic Kier saying his grand agenda is closer to being fulfilled. So he does say this, that the agenda is closer to being fulfilled. That's what I'm saying. Where the hell is all this going?
Well, it seems like, from my theory, and I mentioned this on the last episode of the Schizospiracy Hour, that it seems like that they just want to breed people to work here like permanently so that they don't have to deal with these people anymore. Like they don't have to deal with severing these people. They don't have to deal with innies and outies. They just have full-time innies that are essentially robots that have no emotions and they work
Yeah.
there forever. That, I mean, that seems like the end goal and is like what they want. It's kind of like the version of the Anunnaki story, right? Where the Anunnaki come down, they, create this version of like worker bees, which is in turn us to mine all this gold and mine all this stuff for them, for their whatever. That's what it seems like. And like what they're trying to accomplish. And I think that that is the end goal. Now, whether they actually, it doesn't seem like they're going to complete that because of this hiccup that they're having with Mark right now. So, but that seems like what the whole end goal is. And it might have been because of the goat that didn't get sacrificed
Oh yeah.
is the reason why the rest of her consciousnesses didn't get separated from her. So that's why it couldn't be complete. That's why she couldn't permanently be, perma burnt in that new section of consciousness. So she wouldn't be like that forever because the goat didn't get sacrificed. So all the consciousnesses that had been split that they had been working on for years stayed in there because the way to get rid of all those was to kill the goat. So they would essentially have all of those split consciousnesses that were inside of her, inside of the goat. So whenever they killed the goat, that would get rid of all those, and then she would permanently be like that emotionless entity that was taking apart the crypt.
And check this out, bro. Queen bees use mind control to keep young workers online. A queen bee needs to keep her subjects calm and quiet, and she does this so by secreting a scent that prevents worker bees from learning. According to new, this is 2007, bro. What? That's wild, bro. The study published. This is from 2007. The study published this week in the journal Science found that a component in the queen's pheromone inhibits the sterile worker bee's ability to learn from negative experiences. That's wild, and that kind of sort of ties into this whole, right, the beehive, the Masonic symbolism, this whole thing where the outside real person, whatever that is, doesn't really know what's going on the inside. So they're not learning from the negative experiences of like the uprising and everything else. And it's like, hey, you hurt your hand. Yeah, they told me I fell off a cliff or something, right? Like, remember when
Yeah.
he had hurt his back or something or other. So again, they're kind of hinting at this sort of a bee thing. So by preventing aversive learning, the queen ensures that her youngest offspring will stay in the hive and not use their stings even if something unpleasant occurs. The active scent element is very similar to the brain compound dopamine, which is involved in learning and memory in humans as well as in insects. I wonder, dude, if within the hive, these bees are under this mind control and then outside of the hive, they're not. That'd be very interesting because the bees are severed, bro. The bees are severed
Yeah.
inside the hive, and that's why the Freemasons use the hive symbolism, not the bees, right?
Not
When
the
they
bees.
with the Wicker Man and everything,
Yeah.
and then outside the hive, when they're not next to the queen, they're the Audi version of like, hey, I just gotta go collect pollen and do all this other stuff, and then I come back and I'm a drone again, like that's, bro. Adverse learning is when the animal makes an association between a particular odor and a nasty experience, said senior study author Alison Mercer, a neurobiologist at the University of Otago in New Zealand. Otago. The nasty experience in the study was a mild electric shock accompanied by a particular smell. Honeybees separated from the queen extend their stings when they detected the odor, but young honeybees exposed to the queen's pheromone did not respond to the smell. Bro, outside the hive, they're not severed. Inside, they're severed while they're in contact with that queen's pheromone. The young bees
Wow.
that groom the queen are exposed to very high levels of her pheromone. Older bees, which forage for food outside the hive, are capable of adverse learning. Otherwise, they would have little chance for survival. There it is, dude. Like, you go out into the real world, you take care of your any by eating, resting, right? That was the whole thing with the innies. Like, hey, how do you guys distinguish between a weekend and the next day? We just show up here again. And he's like, no, you'll learn the effects of when you get a good night's sleep, or something along those lines. He's like, you'll learn to appreciate the effects of sleep because they never slept. And then when they finally do sleep, we see that they dream. Remember with Irving and his weird dream that he had with one of the woes or whatever it was that he saw, the
Yeah.
the the lady, the short lady. He had like some weird trippy ass dream. So the homunculus do dream, Ryder. What does that mean?
I say not the bees.
No, not the bees! Not the bees!
What the bears? Bro, that's crazy, man. I never knew about that. That's from 2007. So imagine how far the study has probably gone, right?
I didn't know that about bees. I mean, I knew that the queen bee had everything to do with like their behavior, but I didn't know that that was only inside of the hive.
So
But
this
that
is
makes sense. So the closer the bee is to the queen bee, the more that it's controlled, the further that it is away, the more that it has
whoa.
its own autonomy.
Fringe research suggests that the insects that are essential to agriculture have emotions, dreams, and even PTSD. They're talking about, bro. They're talking about bees having
PTSD bees.
having dreams and everything, bro. So Nick Cage was right, not the bees.
Not the
Bro.
bees.
Anyways, bro, this goes deep, man. I'm excited for season 3. What I'm not liking is I hate when I start a new show that has like little bits of episodes that are like recent because then I have to wait for the next season to come out.
Well, at least we didn't have to wait for season two because some people have been waiting 3 years for this season.
Well, the writer strike or whatever it was contributed to it being delayed, which we're not gonna hopefully not have that. But season 3, Severance,
Yeah, Ben Stiller said that it wasn't going to be another 3 years, so hopefully it'll be
so
two
this is
years.
three days ago. Severance season 3 release date speculation. So let's see here what it says.
It'll be 2 years like every other standard
Oh
show.
man, that's lame, dude. I can't wait 3 years. Gonna have to wait 3 years to talk about this again.
Then we're gonna have to rewatch the whole thing again.
Hey, they might
That's what I.
surprise us and be like, "Hey, next year or whatever, we already recorded it," and they like drop it, right? I mean, that'd be dope if they maybe like the same time next year dropped it.
That's what happened to me with Yellow Jackets. I binged the first 2 seasons of Yellow Jackets, and then the third season just came out like I don't know a month ago, and I couldn't remember anything about it.
We shot the show, so it took us a little bit to regroup because there was the SAG, AFTRA, and Writers Guild of America strikes. So that was delayed because of that. And then it says here it took us a little bit to regroup in the show. We shot for 186 days on season 2. Editing takes a while, but thank goodness the audience was there when we came back. The challenge was to get people who hadn't seen the show to watch the first season. So Apple did a really good job getting the word out, and we did as much press as we could. Also, 3 years later, Apple TV is actually it's a different situation there now because they have more viewers. When we started out, we were one of the first shows. So 186 days. That's like essentially that's almost
5 months, 6 months,
6 months.
six
So
months.
half a year. So half a year, let's say if they start now, plus the editing, yeah, a year, bro. A year to 2 years. Damn, get wrecked.
Yeah, it's going to be around 2 years. That's the standard for all of the TV shows, which I've never understood why it takes that long. They need to shorten that time up. I remember back in the day when it was every year. Every year was the next season of a show, but it's not like that anymore.
So I guess we'll see you guys in another year now to
Probably 2 years, a good 2 years. 2 years, and we'll be talking about season three of Severance.
yeah, bro. I mean, again, dude, you want to add anything else? I think that just watch the show, people. It's interesting, but watch it, like give your attention to it, because if not, you're gonna struggle. Because I struggled with some of the things. I'm like, what the hell is that? I had to replay some parts over because I either wasn't paying attention when it was playing or whatever to really capture it, and I missed a ton of stuff. And there's a ton of stuff in season 1 I missed because again, I know it's gonna play a role later on. So pay attention. It's important.
Pay attention. You can binge all of the first season and the second season together. You don't have to wait, but then you got to unfortunately wait for the third season, like we're going to have to wait. But yeah, just if you get a chance, throw it on, pay attention, watch every episode, and see what you guys think. And if you've already watched it, leave a comment down below and let us know what you thought of the series.
Yeah, it was fun.
Juan, where can people find you, brother?
www.tjojp.com, youtube.com/@tjojp, patreon.com/the one-on-one podcast, all that good stuff. But yeah, my website, find all my stuff on there.
Cool. Thank you. And if you're listening to this on Juan's show, you can find me at Raised by Giants on YouTube and any and all podcast platforms. All right, guys. Next show with Juan will be next month for the MAGA Conspiracy Hour, Schizospiracy number 3. So be looking forward to that one. All right. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.